Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and in this video I want to show you my collection of books from the Arcturus Crime Classics collection. I have 7 books in that collection. Now, the Arcturus Crime Classics showcases unjustly neglected works by great writers from the 30s, the so-called golden age of crime writing, through to the 70s. From conventional whodunits to slick thrillers, the series encompasses every facet of this ever-popular genre. I had never heard of this collection, but I found these books just in secondhand stores and in thrift shops, and I've ended up kind of collecting a few because this is from a time period of mysteries that I really enjoy. So first up, I want to show you Before the Fact by Frances Iles. This is from 1932. Described on its first publication in 1932 as one of the finest studies of murder ever written, Before the Fact tells the tale of wealthy but plain Lina McLeodlaw, who marries the charming and feckless Johnny Aysgarth against the advice of her father. Lina is certain she can change him for the better until she is forced to acknowledge that he is a compulsive liar, a crook, and a murderer. But still she loves him, while fearing she will inevitably become one of his victims. One thing that I enjoy about how they've put these books together is they always have a brief about the author description at the front, which I always find helpful. So Frances Iles was the pseudonym of Anthony Berkeley Cox, who was born in 1893 in Watford. After serving in the army during the First World War, Berkeley worked as a journalist for many years before his first foray into the crime genre with the Leighton Court Mystery in 1925. His two primary nom de plumes were Frances Iles and Anthony Berkeley. As the former, he was a master of the psychological suspense genre, always with a wry, humorous tenor to his writing. As the latter, he acted as a trailblazer in the classic golden age of crime and detective novels. An intensely private man who always shunned public attention, Berkeley died in 1971. And Berkeley was a founding member of the Detection Club, which I think is cool. And so, knowing that now, then the next one I want to show you is this, Trial and Error, from 1937. Oh, hang on, I almost forgot. The opening paragraph of Before the Fact is amazing. Some women give birth to murderers, some go to bed with them, and some marry them. Lina Aysgarth had lived with her husband for nearly 8 years before she realized that she was married to a murderer. Isn't that so good? Okay, so this one is Trial and Error by Anthony Berkeley. How can a murderer prove his own guilt? This is from 1937. Shy and retiring Lawrence Todhunter decides to make one final contribution to humanity before he is claimed by a fatal heart disease. He will eliminate the most obnoxious person he can find. He commits the murder, but then an innocent man is arrested for the crime. Horrified by this unexpected outcome, Todhunter is forced to turn detective to prove to the authorities that they have got the wrong man. So yeah, whatever pseudonym he's using, this author finds really interesting stories to tell. All right, next up is Blueprint for Murder by Roger Bax. This is from 1948, and it is an Inspector James mystery. Wealthy industrialist Charles Collison is found bludgeoned to death shortly after his son Geoffrey and nephew Arthur Cross returned from World War II. As the principal beneficiaries of Charles's will, both men are suspects. Inspector James, called in to investigate, thinks he knows which one of them is guilty. All right, let's find out a little something about Roger Bax. Roger Bax is a pseudonym of the classic crime writer Paul Winterton. Born in Leicester in 1908, Winterton was both an author and a journalist whose prolific output included over 40 novels, ranging from the genres of mystery, detection, thriller, espionage, and romance. His first book, A Student in Russia, appeared in 1931. The nom de plume Roger Bax saw its first outing with Death Beneath Jerusalem, 1938, a crime fiction set in Palestine. 5 more Bax crime novels were to follow, including Blueprint for Murder in 1948. His later novels were published under the pseudonyms Andrew Garve and Paul Summers. Winterton was a founder member of the Crime Writers Association in 1953. He died in 2001. And that takes us then very nicely to No Tears for Hilda by Andrew Garve. This is a Max Easterbrook Investigates from 1950. Max Easterbrook arrives in London to discover that his best friend George Lambert has been charged with wife murder. Max can't believe that George is guilty and sets about trying to find evidence that will prove his innocence. But the picture looks bleak, with George known to be in love with a pretty young nurse and his deceased wife Hilda painted as a harmless woman without an enemy in the world. Alright, and then we have Death Walks in Eastrepps by Francis Beeding. This is an Inspector Wilkins mystery from 1931. Set in a quaint English seaside resort, the complex plot of Death Walks in Eastrepps incorporates all elements of the classic British crime novel. A double identity, a soaring body count, a case of extortion, and a dramatic courtroom scene. This thrilling page-turner was once pronounced one of the 10 greatest detective novels of all time. Interesting. I wonder who pronounced that. Francis Beeding comes into the front rank of those who succeed in making their readers sit up until the book is finished. That's by the Times. Francis Beeding is the pseudonym for the writers Hilary St. George Saunders and John Palmer, who collaboratively wrote crime and thriller fiction novels through the 20s and 30s and into the 40s. Of the 30-plus novels that they penned together, 5 have been adapted into feature films. During the Second World War, Saunders and Palmer turned their attention from mystery novels to cloak and dagger stories involving British efforts to thwart the Nazis. After Palmer died in 1944, Saunders continued to write, publishing several more non-fiction books about the war and the post-war scouting movement before retiring in 1950. The World of Tim Fraser by Francis Durbridge. This is from the creator of Paul Temple. So I think the Paul Temple books that he wrote were maybe a little more popular. This is from 1962. Tim Fraser receives a message from erstwhile business partner Harry Denston telling him to meet him at a remote fishing village. Tim keeps the rendezvous, but there is no sign of Harry. A series of strange happenings, including a Russian shipwreck and a dying secret agent, pulls him into the murky world of international espionage and leads him to uncover the truth behind Harry's disappearance. All right, let's learn about Francis Durbridge. Francis Durbridge, 1912 to 1998, had a brief career as a stockbroker's clerk before success with a radio play encouraged him to become a full-time writer. Most famous as the creator of Paul Temple, Durbridge also wrote a trilogy of thrillers featuring Tim Fraser, an engineer who is gradually recruited by a secret government department as an undercover agent. Like the Temple series, the Tim Fraser stories were adapted for television, running for 18 episodes. And then finally, Some Must Watch by Ethel Lina White. This is from 1933. Film director Robert Siodmak took Some Must Watch as the inspiration for his classic bone-chilling thriller, The Spiral Staircase. In this novel, Helen Capel takes the position of lady help in a remote country house owned by the Warren family. She learns that a murderer is on the loose. All 4 of his victims were young girls, and the last of these was strangled in a lonely house just 5 miles away. Helen feels safe inside the house, protected, but the maniac is closer than she fears. All right. Acclaimed as the mistress of macabre mystery, Ethel Lina White, 1876 to 1944, was one of the best-known crime writers of the 30s and 40s. Although her output output was relatively small, with only 15 mystery stories to her name by the time of her death in 1944. It was of very high quality, and she was noted for producing ingenious atmospheric plots laced with witty dialogue. So there you have it. That is my collection of Arcturus crime classics. What do you think? Have you read any of these books? I would love to chat with you about them in the comment section down below. Have you seen this collection, these Arcturus crime classics? I would love to chat about that as well. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.